Good morning.
Morning! Hey, we're talking about the idiot boy again.
Yes,
Boy
we're
that we
talking.
read too much about.
Yep, we're talking about Stevenson again.
Stevenson.
This time his first work, Big U.
His forbidden work.
His forbidden work.
Well, so he was not as happy with this work. Apparently, he fought about the editor and stuff. But when copies got really expensive on eBay, he was like, "Let's authorize a reprint because no one should pay that much for such a bad book." So we're going to be spoiling it.
Yes,
because
it is an older book.
It's also just that it's really useful to talk about this book as someone who's interested in writing and seen such a good writer and his first book, which is a bit rougher around the edges.
Definitely. So if you haven't read the book yet, pause the video or give it a playthrough on mute, go read the book and then come back to us.
It is a hard book to find because, as I say, it's on limited reprint.
We bought it secondhand, and our poor paperback copy is getting a little bit destroyed because I'm
getting used.
I'm rough on a paperback.
So it is a satirical take on campus life.
What era would you say this is set in?
This is set in the 80s, I think. Yeah, I believe it's set in the 80s.
Yeah.
Because Stevenson himself went to Boston early 80s. There was a lot of talk of tenured professors, of campus politics groups.
Fees, salaries, all of that.
All amenities.
Like campus life as an enclosed space.
Yeah, because like the big U university is one of these sort of mega universities. Like It's structured very much like a for-profit university.
Yeah, it's called American Megaversity.
Like the buildings are like all these towers that are locked in and fluorescent lights everywhere. And like very dehumanizing space.
Yes, well, one of the characters, what's her name, Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah. This is also an early version of Neal Stephenson's multiple POVs.
Indeed.
Kind of all over the place.
It really is.
Sarah, the campus president.
We've got Casimir.
Casimir. He's an immigrant, older student.
Yes. And then we have the I perspective.
So the main book is written from the perspective of young Black American, a remote signaling engineer who is faculty in residence.
Yeah.
You've got Ezra Klein, the autistic classical music mathematician character.
Isn't it Ephraim?
Klein, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have Fred Fine.
The nerdy, role-playing, fantasy-obsessed character. All these character tropes show up in his later books is what I'm saying.
Very much so.
You know, like even the guy who runs the university, the dean,
the dean
is so typical of like later character tropes.
Very much.
You can look at Big U, like everything that Stevenson has to offer in one book.
Very diamond in the rough style.
Oh yeah, no, super rough.
Oh yeah.
Super rough, but it's so fascinating if you've read the rest of his work.
Oh yeah.
You go back to it and you're like, I can see how he later developed that.
I can definitely see it in scenes where he's trying to explain an idea to the audience, because he gets really good at that, especially in the Baroque trilogy, where he just takes a situation where two characters are talking and trying to explain to each other how a thing works, but it's really just for the reader. And he gets really much better at that in his later works, where he really starts from zero and takes you through to some concept, whether it's like banking or whatever. And here he does it more with like...
So he does it with the music resonance thing. He does it with the railgun. He does it with the rats and a lot of the LARPing stuff, which also ties into the whole role-playing kind of D&D panic of the time and all that stuff. The tunnels in the Tom Hanks movie.
Oh, God, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like he does it with a bunch of different things. And obviously the central theme of the book, which he does so often, where he gets two characters to talk for like a couple of pages. Yeah. And he basically lays out like the core thing of the book. The core one for this book being like your environment versus your personal responsibility.
Yes.
And whether or not to be conservative or radical in your reform.
Definitely. I feel like especially Sarah's got that kind of thing going because she actively rebels against the people around her.
Well, yeah, so it's in chapter 9, and it is an argument between Sarah and Ephraim Klein. And it's basically the one stance, which is, oh, you can never blame someone's environment. And because I resisted it, and I'm not a horrible person, the other person saying, well, no, the environment makes it really hard to be a good person, and
Indeed.
going through socio-economic factors versus personal responsibility. And, you know, basically we need to reform the society and the system to make the world a better place. And the other one is, oh, you just need to, like, you know, toughen up and be a good person and have, like, internal...
Oh, God,
It's like internal versus external locus. It is a fundamental principle that appears in his other books, but, like, this is basically drawn in crown in this book. It's a really good book.
It's a good book.
But it's his roughest work.
It's definitely his roughest. Like, I had some trouble following it sometimes, and the ending was especially...
He's never great at endings.
He's never great at endings.
But this one, I feel it was, like, a bit cleaner. And, again, this is a little bit like, I'm a young writer and heavy-handed or whatever, but I do like the open and close with basically the same line.
It's so... The fan just as a metaphor for how the issues just stay anyway.
Yeah, it's like...
It had been there before anyone could ever remember, and... nobody even noticed it was there anymore.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of people in certain groups of thinking really like this big cycle theory of, like, oh, things go through this cyclical nature. And this book obviously pushes it. I find it really depressing and useless, and it's a very sort of like Gen X boomer take, because it's like, oh, we can never change and improve. But it is very well presented in the book as a theming device.
Indeed.
Yeah. But it was really funny when you were reading, because I've read this book so many times now, because I love reading this book, because it's such a good, like, as I say, it's like a mega dose of Stephenson, because it's very fast books. For him,
that's restraint.
I told you how he wrote the book, right?
No.
So he pitched it without having written it.
Oh, I remember now.
And he got an agent, and then he got a typewriter. He rented a typewriter, and he knocked out the thing super fast. And the typewriter was like melting in the heat, so the only way he could keep it is he just had to keep on writing.
Yeah.
Literally knocked out the whole book in like 12 days or something.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The original agent didn't pick it up, but then later another person did, and it ran through. And apparently one of the reasons he's not super happy with it is he didn't realize what some of the edits had been done to it when it was published. But yeah, no, it was a real sort of, first of all, pitching a book on spec and getting it signed.
In the fiction industry, that's so hard.
It's a time gone past.
Exactly.
And, you know, right time, right place and all that. But then he wrote it really, really fast out. But yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, it's still a hard book to write so fast. There's so much in there. There's so many, like, little ideas.
He definitely had it structured out.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And in the beginning, when I was reading it, I felt like it was just unrelated cameos. And then it kind of winds into a same path. And it's like, oh.
And remember when I was nudging you when you started to read, it was like, have you got to the bit with the fan yet? Have you got to the bit with the corridors? Because there's a lot of writers could learn a lot from this book.
Yes.
Just because the narrative stuff is so obviously used. The Go Big Red fan is at the opening and closing of the book. The corridor resonance is at the opening and the closing of the book. There's like so many things that you can basically tell he has gone, oh, I need to put this at the beginning and the end. Yeah. And
there's also a bit of the fan in the middle as well, so it's well spaced.
It is spaced through, but it's a bit heavy-handed in the methods.
Much. The fan killing someone, it's like, oh, the issues is killing people. Okay, we get it.
And like the frat boys being like terrorists and the sorority sisters
being
and all that
airheads.
Stuff. Yeah, it's a little on the nose.
It's really, yeah.
As I say, the book is basically, I think this is the key difference between this and his later works, at least in terms of his core writing style, is he got a lot better at towing the line and walking the edge of believability versus absurdity in his later books.
There are spots in his other books where it kind of almost veers into absurdity, but then it pulls back.
Yeah.
It's very good.
He's better at that, like in Cryptonomicon and...
in the Baroque trilogy.
Yeah. First Breakaway Success, Snow Crash, like... He has a futuristic setting, so he's able to go a bit more off the rails. He gets better at walking that line.
That's what we wanted to talk about, because I had been meaning to read this book for a long time now, and it just wasn't. And now that I've read it, I kind of want to read it again in like a few months. Like with all of Neal Stephenson's books, I'm like, that was a good book. Now I don't want to touch him for another 2 weeks.
He is, as I say, it is a shorter read for his. And if you are a Stephenson fan, I think you'll enjoy this a lot. And if you're just someone who's interested in writing, it's really interesting to see someone who went on to have such a robust career, have such a rough first book, you know, because it's quite rare that we see someone's rough first book.
Indeed.
You know, because it's so hard to get published that usually by the time someone's got published, they have at least refined their style.
Very much so.
Their agent has like smoothed it out. Because like his second book, I feel, got smoothed out a lot more.
Oh, very much, yeah.
If you're familiar with like the moral panic of D&D and all that stuff, there's so much in here. There's so much in here. And it is just fun. It is just fun.
It's also well laid out in that, like, there's not so much chapters. Everything's laid out in months, which is already like a really fresh take, I find. It also uses different narrative things. There's a scene that's completely written like stage directions almost.
Yeah.
Where it's like Casimir, da-da-da-da-da, Sarah, da-da-da-da-da. Like to try and lay out conversations, like dissected almost.
Yeah, no. You definitely want to pick this up, and you definitely want to read it if you've read any Stevenson, or if you're just interested in a writer's journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope we've given people some useful bits and bobs there.
And if you want to go reread it, we won't stop you.
Otherwise, I've got nothing to say. No projects on at the moment. Well, no projects we can talk about at the moment.
No. Everything's ticking along. Tickety-boo. Have a great one.
Take care.
Bye.